Okay. Okay, I think it's working now. Please let me know if there's issues. So, to begin, I wanted to speak about something that was brought up in a Discord discussion yesterday. And a very astonishing idea collided with my mind, something that was inevitable. And so, like in this episode, I'm going to explain to you what I heard yesterday and how it made me think about 4 types of conclusions to human destiny. Okay? So, in this episode, I will be sharing something I have designed, something I've created, a system, which I have termed it Ring of the Absent Heaven. So, let me see how I could dive into this. Okay. So, first of all, welcome everybody. I'm going to begin by saying that last night I heard a very interesting idea, and it's an idea that is found in religion. But it has a very interesting implication for the human position. What I heard last night was someone in the Discord said something very interesting, and it was this idea how everything began from a singular source and everything returns to a singular source, you know? And this is like the same way of saying, everything started from God, everything returns to God, but it was the idea that it's singular, right? It's the notion of oneness. So we start our consciousness being separate entities in the world, being separate from the world to some degree. Both in our biological system and in our cognitive systems, there's separations with the world. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to is that somebody suggested it started from oneness and it returns to oneness. And as someone who's been speaking about building advanced civilizations, their significance, importance, styles, and whatnot, it was as if a very great challenge for my sort of perspective, right? So I was thinking about it, okay, in what sort of conditions does it not make sense to build an advanced civilization? Okay, so this system I've designed, Ring of the Absent Heaven, I realized I can use this system to explain four types of what I've termed them as 4 transcendental conclusions. Okay, but the way I'm going to explain it to viewers is this: that pretty much, this was a while back, I created this system called Ring of the Absent Heaven, and it's pretty much dividing all conception and possibilities in reality into 4 quadrants. And so they're in 4 symbols: 0, 1, 2, and the infinity symbol. These four symbols, which they cycle, right, are what I have designed, what I have out of all the different types of systems. I was like, this makes sense, you know. And so, what is it? Pretty much, I am considering that there's four ways that there could be a possibility to worldhood. So, what are these ways? One way is the zero dimension, which is another way of saying there is nothing here. At the beginning, there was nothing here, and at the ending, there will be nothing here. So the human psychology has a relationship with its moment of being where I have simplified it to the number zero. You can feel like a zero in this life. Okay, you can feel everything gets a value and then comes back to zero. Right, as a materialist, this the most likely you see it this way. But when it comes to, so that was the zero symbol. Then we have the number one, which is a suggestion of all realities that are singular. So it would be as if, like, think of it this way. So I wish I could write this episode on a notepad, but I don't have my notepad here to show the viewers. But pretty much this is the idea: 0, 1, 2, 4, 0, 1, 2 infinity symbol. So what does it mean? That means there is a dimension where the starting value is 0 and the ending value is 0, regardless of whatever was in between. In another dimension, the starting value was singular, it was oneness at the beginning, and then a lot of stuff happened, and eventually it comes back to oneness. This is the suggestion that was made on Discord. Now, there is duality, and it's the suggestion that reality started as a dualistic position, as a dance of chaos and order, and this chaos and order will continue as this sort of change between forces. So we have the void dimension. Reality is void, and it started void, and it's going to a void position. There's this view that everything is singular, everything is like one being, it's fragmented itself into like millions of creatures, and eventually it returns back to the oneness. Okay. So the end of the journey is oneness, the end of the journey for the void is the void. Okay. Now for duality, the end, it started dualistically and the ending is dualistic. So it's a dualistic conclusion. And then we have the infinity symbol. Now this is very fascinating because this is the suggestion that rather than we're finite and we discovered the infinite, it could be the suggestion that we're infinite and we discovered the finite. So it could be that everything has always existed. And it's as if what it is that it was infinite in the beginning, experienced temporality, and it will continue to be infinite at the end. So the four types of conclusions I'm seeing to any sort of creature of shape, form, and some sort of conscious attention. So basically, the four transcendental conclusions are that everything is going to emptiness, everything is going towards oneness, everything's going to stay as a duality, or everything's going towards the infinite. So when we think about the advanced civilization in these four contexts, in the context of the void, there's no advanced civilization. Even if it is, it's a hallucination that returns to the void. In the singular reality, the advanced civilization, if it's a consideration of oneness, it has been there before ever needing to be. So in oneness, there could be a sort of idea that there is no need for individuals to even have an advanced civilization, or the civilization has no fragmentation, which is another way of saying like the separate drops of water became an ocean, and now the ocean cannot become the drops of water. We don't know in the future, in the era of collective mindhood, like they could have an ability to connect your mind to the internet, but maybe they might not have the ability to disconnect it, right? This is a sort of concern for cyberspace in the future. In oneness, it's very bizarre, and it's another way of saying individualism was the mirage in the desert. If the purpose of life is dualistic, it's another way of saying the world likes to change. And so what it is, it's not just like people have to change. It's like the nature of reality is that it's as if it's getting bored of itself instantaneously, so it has to find something new instantaneously. You know, I have this view that the more intelligent we become as creatures, the less we want to be a creature. But anyways. You know, there's many ways to look at this world. There's many ways to conclude it. Every person's bound to have a different perspective because our journeys, conditioning, ethnocentrism, DNA, all of this stuff is different. When I think about the destination of reality, I ask myself, what is reality? If reality is a shape, its destination is a shape. If reality is a field of intelligence, then its destination is a field. What is very incredible is that human intelligence has access to what it is. And so even though many people go on trying to find spiritual gurus and trying to like have secrets activate, but they're going to realize that when it comes to the nature of mind, to comprehend your mind is very different than comprehending your body. To comprehend your body, you have an environment which is there from before. And so there's forces acting upon the physical individualism. But when it comes to the psychological individual, when it comes to how you're being an individual subject, this has to do with, in some sense, a sort of elegance and style of how your attention functions, right? So I've realized for myself, I'm a person where, you know, sometimes this is a disadvantage, sometimes it's an advantage, but I get bored quickly. And because I get bored quickly, I either adjust myself to the lesser reality or I jump ahead, you know? You know, I've been thinking about the dimensions of life, and one of the most profound moments in a person's life is not when they realize what they know, it's when they realize what they don't know. And so we human beings are fascinated by education, are fascinated by the information age. Human beings are probably, like right now, 8 billion human beings, probably a majority of them are conditioned to interact with cyberspace like a couple times throughout the day. You know, whether it's reading emails or whether it's going into virtual reality, we are noticing that the human contentment with the pace of the biological entity is shifting through artificial, faster cyber attractions. You know, my biggest concern for the species is that I don't know why I envisioned this. It's not a pleasant thing to envision, but I envisioned that there's going to come a time in the future where the psychological turbulence of the human being is going to shift in ways we have never seen, right? And so this is very important that the species finds a sort of non-objective common denominator to empower itself and encourage its motivation, you know? Because what it's going to be like, it's going to be like this. Imagine like a couple hundred years from now, you're a kid, you put on these, you go into cyberspace, you put on these, I don't know, virtual reality goggles, or hopefully they found a way not to connect something to the brain, but rather through waves or something. You go stand in a booth with like antennas around you, and I don't know, somehow your brain goes into cyberspace without anything breaking through the skull, right? There's going to come a time where a person's going to like their desire, the human desire, it's going to be satisfied artificially, psychologically, in a short-term mode, quicker. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that the world human beings are building for themselves is a world that is not capable of attending to all natural dimensions of the human being. So what it is we are the unnatural science project of nature. We are that which is seeing more than it has to. You know, like the human species, sure. You know, so many people, they wish they didn't have problems, they wish they didn't have suffering, but it took us 4.5 billion years to evolve to even notice our suffering. At least now we can notice it. At least now, as a conscious entity in this realm, we can notice the structure of the positions we're in. But before, we were just this force kind of pushing itself through whatever, you know, channel of evolution it could find, whatever canal of evolution it could flow through. You know, this world is incredible, and its implication in the 4 dimensions suggests its value. A lot of people stretching from ancient mystics to just like the ancient world to modern New Age folk, right? It's as if their view is that reality is ultimately a oneness, and even though we think we're 8 billion creatures, individuals, what is actually behind our eyes inspiring all of us is a singular moment beyond time. So what it is that it's like all experiences of time, just through common sense, have a timeless origin. It's another way of saying, you know, they say when the student is ready, the master appears. When the human brain was ready, it could fathom time, portray it, you know, overlay it upon reality. Or just to, you know, name how matter changes in space, to give a name to that. What I'm starting to realize is that human beings occupy themselves with acts of worship, but they seem to be worshiping nouns. Like, that's the bizarre thing. I think this is where religion, you know, interfering with politics got it wrong, right? Religion is another way of saying that if there was an inconceivable source to life, by paying the price of submitting your ego, you get to experience the divine will, a connection with the Creator. See, this is the religious paradigm. But when you go and try to establish a relationship with the Creator is inconceivable. And this is one of the most fascinating things I realized just as a human being on this planet, where I was like, there's billions of religious people. And they're all, I mean, most of them, I'm not talking about, even though polytheism, people think like, you know, in Vedic thought, like in Hinduism, people are just worshiping like separate gods. But in actuality, their most enlightened people acknowledge an inconceivable state of being. So what it is all human traditions, and specifically those who were mystically inspired, they came to realize that man's relationship as consciousness is not a relationship with a conceivable world, it's a relationship with an inconceivable moment. And what human beings are here to notice and what frees them, there's this beautiful story of the Buddha, kind of savage but beautiful story the Buddha shares, which kind of relates to the point I'm trying to make here, right? So the Buddha, evidently after attaining nirvana, getting enlightened, becoming the Buddha, he remembers all his past lives. And he was in this hellish dimension with this other person, and these 2 guys were prisoners, and there was a hellish guard with a trident. Okay? And this hellish guard would treat Buddha, before he was Buddha, like before he had incarnated in his Buddhic lifetime, he would treat these 2 like brutally, savagely, beating them up, constantly killing, abusing them in this hellish dimension, this hellish guard. And then there's a moment where Buddha says, the hell guard, and says, "Why are you hitting?" Too much confidence traps you in your inner realms. Too little confidence makes you a slave of the outer realms. And if you're in between, you're you're the soul that doesn't know what to do. I don't know. There's different states of attention. Your attention to reality has different intensities. I found myself being capable, this happened at a young age. I think when I was 15, I wanted to clean my room without moving and just move your hand and the flame would move. And I remember hours I would spend like staring at this candle flame, wondering if it was flickering or not. And I was such a bit of a nerd that I even created this thing called a PSI wheel, right? Where you fold this piece of paper and then you put it on the top of this needle. And I remember I would try to like move it, you know. I wanted to move my reality directly. I wanted to have the same instantaneity and comfort in my inner realms and the outer realms. But I realized only in speech, maybe in writing and drawing, or even in dancing, I can instantaneously at least translate the inner realms into the outer realms. Okay, but there's many states that based on where the attention is, reality gets influenced. I was telling, actually today I was at a, family event. One of my, okay guys, maybe it's back. Um, Ned Stark said winter is coming. I didn't know I have to give podcasts in my car. Like, thanks, Ned.